And welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Bubba the Bloom, episode 76. No, you're not seeing things. It's Sunday night, folks. It's the end of the 2023 baseball season. We're here to kind of have a post-mortem, good, bad, and ugly of the 2023 season, and unofficially sponsored by High Noon as we get ready to enjoy the day.
I didn't get the memo on the sponsorship, or I just messed up. But I've got a Fort George Pale Ale here from Astoria, Oregon, to celebrate the end of the year. Cheers, my man! We made it.
Cheers! Salute! Another season in the books. 2023. It was a blast, absolute blast. Tiring, exhausting, which baseball is, but people don't care about that. First off, I'm on Twitter at BDMtrick. Bloom over there. Ryan Bloomfield's on Twitter at RyanBHQ, but you guys know that stuff by now. I'd imagine just formalities. But yeah, we're here to kind of recap the good, the bad, the ugly, mostly the good, because every now and then a good victory lap goes a long, long way, especially when you busted your butt for 6 months of the baseball season. So we're going to go through that, go over a couple listener shout outs, get some awards for the fantasy baseball season and more. But Ryan, you were much more invested in this. Not saying I wasn't invested, but you were watching a lot closer than I was. So when I'm just going to round it up. When 3:30 our time hit, how'd you feel?
Relieved. Like I thought I would feel like happy, ecstatic, won some leagues, that sort of thing, which we'll talk about. But just kind of relieved. I don't know. I mentioned on the last show that I think you handle this a lot better than I do, but I spent way too much time last 2 weeks just needlessly looking and refreshing at standings and things I had no control over. And I don't have to do that anymore. And so felt a little relieved, but also felt good. It's always good to make it all the way through. I still contend fantasy baseball, it's just such a marathon. We need to celebrate the end of the year. And I think on Twitter and everyone posting their wins and that sort of thing. I think it's kind of cool because we do work so hard at this, and it's the season itself is 6 months long, but we do this year round. And a lot of people that are really into this stuff do this 8, 9, 10 months. And to finally have it come to an end, celebrate those wins, because it's hard to do. It's hard to win a league, and it's especially hard to do in this game. So that's partly what we're doing tonight. But yeah, to answer your question, I felt relieved, and I went over and grabbed a little glass of bullet bourbon and enjoyed myself. Enjoyed the end of the year.
Kudos on that. Yeah, no, it's a relief. Last year was not a great year fantasy wise for me. I think you had a couple rough rounds out there outside of winning.
Oh, yeah. Last year was not good. No.
Yeah, it was not a good year last year. So that's kind of what makes this even better, because you sit there after a year like last year going, what am I doing this for? What's all this hard work? What are we doing? So to know that it paid off, and then the highlight of it, and I almost tweeted it out, but people hate it, so I'll say it on the show instead. Yes, we want to win our leagues. Obviously, that's how this goes. But when we get the shout outs from other people that our work helped them, that's pretty freaking awesome. I know I've talked about that on many shows before, that's kind of the reason that kind of keeps the train moving most of the time, is those kind of things. So if it's even a DM, if it's a tweet, if it's whatever, it sounds silly, and I'm not begging anybody for this, but when those do come around, it does help a ton. And it's great to see that the time we've put in on this is helping you guys at worst enjoy baseball, but at best win your leagues, which is pretty cool as well.
Absolutely. And that's part of the goal we try and do with this. We do this podcast because we like each other, presumably, and have fun doing it. B, it helps ourselves. At least speaking for myself, I was a better player because we were diving into weekend matchups and schedules and that sort of thing throughout. And then probably not tertiary, but yeah, the success of our listeners, it's really freaking cool to hear about, and to get those shouts from a few of you all means a lot to both of us.
Yep, means an absolute ton. So, yeah, it was a fun season in the books, but sadly, or unsadly, depends on how you look at it, we're already probably moving towards 2024. You're working on the Bible, and I've already started my rankings. It never ends. And the one thing is, I say it tongue in cheek, but since I started doing that, it has made me a better player. So it's kind of one of those it's like most things in life. You put the work in, usually the results follow, and that's the only thing that kind of keeps me going. I'll say this much: I didn't have tonight was the first night I've had fantasy baseball content. Well, I wrote an article for HQ on Saturday night, but that's not too bad.
Yeah.
But like for like 3 nights in a row, I really had nothing to do for the first time in 6 months. And it was like I was like, I could go to my computer. I'm like, no, I'm gonna go watch Netflix and like open a freaking noon and do nothing right now. Like it was
That's
so
what
relaxing.
I was gonna like. You have to be so much more relieved than me because every night you did first pitch pod, you did DFS quick hits. Probably half the nights you wrote a daily matchups article, and like all of a sudden, that's
it was really like Friday night, not having like a fab article and something else. Like I put my daughter to bed and I'm like sitting there with the dog going like, what are we doing tonight? Like, what are we doing right now? This is freaking nuts. So, yeah, it's fun, but the grind never ends, as they say.
No,
so.
it doesn't. It was funny. I was telling my wife, she does not care about how I do in my leagues and that sort of thing, but she was aware that the season ended today and basically made the comment that there is no off season because she knows it's forecaster season now, and so it's just going to be busy. Actually, this is like the busiest time of the year for me coming up with forecaster first pitch. I'll rest. I'll sleep in December. That's the plan.
If I let you. But we'll have fun there. People are enough of that, but I was gonna say enough of us, but we're gonna recap our seasons, then we'll get to awards, then we'll get to shout outs. But like we said, even on last week's show, we wanted to see an episode to victory lap a little bit. We're also going to talk about our shortcomings, so don't worry about that.
Yeah.
But let's have some fun with this, and let's just start with the big one because, like I said, I didn't have anything to do this weekend, and I just kept forgetting to go to my computer to play a game that I basically conceded to you, Ryan. So congratulations.
It's pretty bad, man. 26 weeks of picking weekend streamers. I entered the last weekend up too, and opened up the dock Saturday morning and just don't see your pick. So you wave the white flag. You conceded pretty much Ricky Fowler style in the Radrick
that was
this morning. But yes, I did win the free round of golf at First Pitch Arizona, and that's main event overalls, whatever that can wait. It's the in-person round of golf that you will be paying for. Yep. In the pro shop in a month from tomorrow, or actually a month from when this episode hits feeds. So I'm very much looking forward to that. Having to do that. So yes, glad you conceded. I don't know. It was tough this last weekend. I mean, everyone knows, and everyone saw what the schedule is like, how messed up this last weekend can be, unless you have Kyle Finnegan or Rich Hill. Slight insight.
What was the Rich Hill win on a Sunday is like the ultimate final day stuff.
Yeah, but that I took that took the stress out of the equation for me. So free round of golf at Dobson Ranch, courtesy of you. I took down 23-21 over the entire
tight
season.
Race.
So pretty close.
Good race. And at least the last month and a half or so, the matchups were actually close for the most part, and compared to some early season matchups where it was ugly. So we kind of got things going towards the end, hopefully for the listeners there. But we have to go back. I remember we had a couple side bets for some cocktails in Arizona. We'll have to go look into those and see how those panned out, because maybe I'll get something out of this. Otherwise, just it's my face for radio that comes on with you once a week. Let's talk about some more fun stuff, though, before we get into the bads. We'll talk about some of the goods. Well, Tout Daily, we talked about that a long time ago. I took that down. If you missed the tweet, though, I was a Tout winner, if you're curious. I did actually win an event in Tout, but we talked about that a while back. So
we did, but it's still worth worth regurgitating, and you will get your menu item. Have you had any more thought about that? Someone with a stack.
It's a stack. It's going to be involving a stack. So it's always kind of burger because it's a DFS thing. It's got to have a trend of a stack and whatnot. And I'm going to have somebody take pictures and everything and send them to me because I'm not flying to New York for that. So let me know how it goes. But on the flip side, there's Tout and then there's labor. Somebody on this show, not named Bubba, did pretty well in labor, Mr. Bloomfield. Congratulations.
Thank you. Was in labor. I have been in the labor league for, I guess, 5-6 years, and got close once. I lost it on the last day a couple years ago to Fred Zinke. But this year took it down. Dr. Roto, who is funny. I was actually looking back. We live streamed the draft back in February. And so that's still available for anyone who, it's got to be a really slow off season. But if anyone wants to rewatch that and rewatch some of the picks, I actually did that going back. And I remember cursing Dr. Roto out like half the time. He took a lot of my guys, and there he was at the end of the year. We were tied going into the last week of labor mixed, and I was fortunate enough to pull it out. So I've wanted that league for a while outside of the main event, which I didn't cash in, really didn't do that well in this year. Labor's the one I really want. So that was really good. And just looking back, like, not to dive too much into these teams because we could talk for hours about this, but just like one major thing that I always talk about is the middle rounds. And so two of my first three pitchers in labor were Aaron Nola in the second round, Tristan McKenzie in the sixth round. Like, not that great. Nola was fine outside of the ERA, but it was the middle rounds in labor. I had a 13th round Cody Bellinger, 14th round Justin Turner, 16th round Carlos Estevez, 19th round Savali, 20th round CJ Abrams, 21st round Justin Steele. And like, I'm going to continue to harp. That's one of the major takeaways that I have pretty much every year. But this is a nice example of the labor team doing that. Is just, if you can nail some of those middle round guys, like, you're in such a, like, I'd rather hit on 3 or 4 of those guys and just bomb an early pick. We just spent so much time on those first like 5 rounds. But if you can get some of those guys that I just listed off in the 14th through 20th rounds, it helps so much. And that's pretty much why I won labor.
Yeah, that was a fun one. I remember hosting that draft and heckling you and watching Dr. Roto. Just like we literally thought Roto was like watching the feed, because we literally talk about a guy and seconds later, boom, Roto picks this guy, and it was really really funny. But just imagine if you listen to some idiot that told you to take Jacob deGrom in like round 4 or 5. Just imagine if you would have done that.
And so it's funny. So that's right, because that was the big deal. Was
he was
Jacob
falling
deGrom
and falling and falling.
He went at the end of the 4th round, which was just crazy at the time. And I actually remember I had a choice. Like, you were, I don't want to say baiting me into taking deGrom. You were highly suggesting that I take Jacob deGrom. I took another starting pitcher in the 4th round, and that was Mr. Kevin Gossman. So
worked out pretty well.
Worked out okay. The other one where I was being heckled by both you and the crowd was that Cody Bellinger pick,
which worked out pretty well also.
Worked out pretty good.
So yeah, not too shabby. All right, we'll move on to the next section here. Draft champions. I somehow fell away with 2 of these, but they're 2 completely different leagues, which is obviously, but I'll get to this. The first part was very entertaining. The 2 early DC / people call mock drafts that we do. The very first time we did it was last year, and we've already done the first 7 rounds of 2024 for this year. I took that one down, and this was a draft that we talked about once in a while on the show. I was like running away with that league, and then all of a sudden, here comes James Anderson, and then here comes Steve Weimer, and then all of a sudden, I'm down like 12, like 6 points or something, and then I battled back in the last couple of weeks and it's kind of held it on again, which is great. But I was just looking, like, you can look at a ton of different things on this, but just like the little late round type things that you look at the way they finish the season, like a Mitch Garver per se. One guy who we've talked about tons on streaming, I had Kyle Farmer, which just imagining probably pick past 400 or 500 with Kyle Farmer. And he's been tremendous in a 15-team DC with his flexibility and what he's pulled off. But kind of the big things to look at, because this is a team we talked about even just on the side. Like, I could barely fill a roster some weeks. I'm waiting for this one to end. I'd have Brandon Marsh and Mickey Moniak playing. I
remember it was May, I think, and we were talking, and literally your only healthy, and this was before he was like good this year, your only healthy bat on the bench was Mickey Moniak.
Yeah. And it worked out for a while, which was crazy. But what really helped me here, it's Blake Snell. Obviously, Garrett Cole's the first pick, but Blake Snell, Nick Pivetta, like Bailey Ober, Mitch Keller, that'll help out pretty much any team. But man, I'm still looking at it again. There's so many injuries on this staff. It's I limped and it worked, but that's the beauty of DCs, I guess, is whatever you can keep healthy, just keep it healthy long enough type situation. So we'll see there.
Both draft champions we were in together, you won, you bastard.
Those are the only 2 DCs I did.
Those are the only 2 you did. Jesus.
So maybe I should do more is what I'm starting to tell myself. Maybe, because what I'm looking at here is when I tweeted out all my goods, the bads, the uglies, all my teams I tweeted out, like my 12th place OCs, all of them. What I've noticed is the Fab leagues I did better in. I did closer to the season. Like that team I finished 12th was a beat Brent Hershey league that was way early in the OCU season, one of the first ones they hosted. I did better as those went on. I did better at the on the wires and stuff like that. But the DCs and the NFBC 50s, I think it's the depth that we talk about going through, a lot of the depth we talk on the show, and that's what kind of saved my butt in those scenarios. But yeah, we'll see, because that second OC was a wild one. Nutston was rolling with this league, absolutely destroying us in this league.
Yeah, top 100 overall.
I thought I had zero chance of anything in this league. I started the week, I think, 6 points out of first. I was in second place, and I won by a half a point, 119 to 118.5. And I just look at this roster, and it's just glorious. It's a beautiful roster. Nelson Velasquez, for those keeping track at home.
44th round, Nelson Velasquez.
Christopher Morel. Nolan Jones. Anybody curious about that? Josh Young's here. There's Isaac Paredes, who it's just a bunch of dudes that I'm.
Nick Pavetta, 28th round.
That's
where I look in these DCs, like for especially I should pull up. I
Adbert
apologize. I don't know who won the overall, but I want to see the overall winner, like what they did rounds 30 to 50.
Yeah, no, that's the kind of thing that'd be great to see, because you look at my bench, it's not great, but the starting lineup held strong in that league, and that helped me get to I think it was 52nd overall. It fought all the way towards 52nd overall in the DCs, which for me, for a guy that's not usually good at those formats, I'll take that every single day of the week.
Oh yeah, I mean that was one of the last day win, so it would be rough. I mean, to be finished top 100 in the DCs overall is really damn good. To do that and not win the league, that would have been rough. So congrats on that one, man.
Thank you. I had an overall lead on him for a while, but I didn't get the league win on him for quite a while, so that was a bit stressful. Let's talk about your WRF, man. You WRFed it up, because my BARF team, I finished 11th in BARF. I just could not get going in there, but you made it happen, my friend. In Earth, WRF. Congratulations.
In WRF. So WRF is the so for those unaware, Earth is this conglomeration started by
BARF.
By you guys, by BARF, the Bay Area Roto Fantasy. I think
by Laura Michaels, for the late great. He created that bad boy. He was one of the creators of the bad boy.
Yep, absolutely. And so that has grown to this thing called Earth, which is the overall competition, but within that is regional leagues. And so WRF is the Western Expanse Roto Fantasy League, basically for the Pacific Northwest and further parts unknown. I've actually, the trick to winning this league, I won pretty, I don't want to say easily, but I wasn't too far. It wasn't much of a sweat, I should say, and finished 5th overall, which for me was fantastic. The key to my success, however, and we're going to pull it for the YouTube crowd and the live stream crowd, a little surprise for you. This was the
great.
This was the key to my draft prep.
I forgot you guys drafted on. I forgot about that's the night you guys drafted.
So this was the key. Is WRF drafted on St. Patrick's Day, Friday night. It was a Friday night, St. Patty's Day, and so this picture of me with a bottle of Jameson and I guess my kid's Irish thing he brought home from daycare, with an Irish hat and a beard, and obviously it's daylight out, so. The draft wasn't until 8:00 that night. So, we call it the drunk draft, and it obviously worked. I made some picks that I don't normally pick, for obvious reasons. I think I took Tatis in the 2nd round. Yeah. I started Kyle Tucker, Tatis, Aaron Nola, Devin Williams, but just didn't miss very many guys, outside of pitching. I took Jeffrey Springs, Hunter Green, Trevor Rogers, Jorge Lopez. So maybe that was the Jameson talking, but WRF went pretty well. Had a few. I think I took I got Ellie De La Cruz and Fab in that league, just a few Fab pickups. But obviously the key to all that success was the luck of the Irish, for sure.
Luck of the Irish. My goodness, that's amazing. Absolutely amazing stuff. Congrats on that one. Toby took down BARF. I know that much for a fact. If you want the full WRF standings, check out Justin Mason and some of the boys. They got you covered there. But
and actually, not to cut you off, but speaking of luck of the Irish, Ryan Ireland won the overall in Earth. So
hey, there you go.
congratulations.
Look at you. It's like you're a professional putting this all together here. Absolutely outstanding stuff there.
He edged out. It was because I was somewhat close. I mean, like I said, I was fifth, but a couple of weeks I was like semi close. But I was watching the overall. It was Ryan Ireland and Dustin McComas back and
Almost out of
forth.
Texas.
They were like, yep, they were dead tied. I believe going into the last week in the overall. So congrats to Ryan and Dustin on that.
Yeah, the barf we've been doing for a while, but the whole Earth thing's pretty cool because it's one of the few times that we get together and do a live draft. I know Barf does. I'm pretty sure all of them do, except I think you guys were online.
We didn't. No,
I think it's like I'd say it's like 80% or so, maybe more. Like do it all in person, so it really makes it even cooler. In that
yeah,
regard.
I'd like to. Actually, most of our league did. Well, maybe half did. They met up in Seattle and drafted.
It's tough if it's super spread out. Like I'm one of the farthest ones from Barf, me and Toby, and we kind of meet in the middle in San Francisco. But it's pretty cool. It's a great thing they're doing, and there's charity involved and all kinds of other cool stuff. So, as usual, Mason and the rest of the crew kick butt and anything they put their minds to. Speaking of that, we don't have it on the list, but TGFBI, I finished second in my league. It was a big bummer though. I was like 54th overall. For the longest time, I was going back and forth between first and second, but I had a top 10 team for a long time at TGFBI, top 10 overall, and it just fell apart towards the end. So that was a bummer, but another fun season there.
And I think Justin's in the chat, so if he knows the TGFBI overall winner, we can give him a shout. Yes. Him or her a shout.
Him or her a shout. I can tell you right now who it is.
I guess.
I got access to it right here.
We're both in the league.
Yeah, it's funny. Look at I go to TGFBI and then I click on this button here for the overall standings, and the winner is Brandon Cameraman. Doug Thorburn finished second. Wow, look at Dougie Thorburn. Ryan Williams third. Ryan Ireland finished sixth in this one too. He had a good year. Good year. But next up on the list here, On the Wire, the boys of the On the Wire pod, great pod. I had the luxury of being on it this past week. I told them I didn't want to be because I won the league and I was pretty much dominating the league all year. But they tell me, they hit me up and go, hey, you got to hold on the first overall. We usually have the first overall, do the last show of the year, this, that, and the other. I'm like, you guys are jinxing this. You know this, right? And I'm like, oh, no, you'll be fine. Literally the next day on Saturday, I went to like second overall. I got as low as seventh overall. I finished fourth overall in the On the Wire. Given the top was chain, like Yancey Eaton was up there and a few others. It was really, really good stuff there. But yeah, it was a fun season. Finished first there. It helps when you have the likes of a Francisco Lindor and a Ronald Acuna Jr. and a few other guys. But the waiver wires will help me a ton. I worked the waiver wire like a madman because injuries did get me, but waiver wire was big in that league for me.
And I think they are opening drafts already for 2020. Are those 12-teamers or 15s?
That's the thing is they used to be 12 only. The first one opens at 15. I think they want to do half 15s and half 12s now. I'm trying to stick to 12s only. But what I will say to the listeners out there, and I talked about it, if you are new to NFBC, you're kind of nervous to play in NFBC. I understand all of that because I was there. This is like my second full year going hard at it. NFBC has satellite leagues, but these are basically satellites as well. And for $50, you can't find many $50 leagues, especially for 15s, let alone 12s. The payouts are I wrote it down here. First is 400. I think it's like 250 and 100 or something. So you get paid out pretty well, and there's nothing. There's no overall prize, but it's a great way to learn the system. So if you guys see that stuff, I know I'm going to play in a couple of the 12s. They were trying to get me to get in the 15 already. I'm like, I got to slow down a little bit, guys. Slow down a little, like a little bit here. But yeah, they've already started those up here, so that's pretty darn sweet.
That's a nice entry point. And definitely shout out to the On the Wire podcast with Adam and Kevin. Kevin coming to first pitch playing golf with us, so that's going to be great. But yeah, those $50 leagues in NFBC, which I contend is the best format out there, especially for fab leagues. It's a great way to get in and get your feet wet and kind of learn things. And of course, if anyone has questions on the ins and outs of it, the intricacies, we are by no means NFBC experts, but I think we know our way around pretty well.
We can help you navigate it, like finding the overall champions. We can find that for you.
Yeah.
Justin Mason said Danielle even cashed in her On the Wire. Like I know she finished third in that one, so you make some money. Our buddy Mr. Moose himself, he even said the DC 50s are great, which is very true. Great way to get your feet wet. They're basically 50-round draft and holds, but 12 teams instead of 15, and they're $50 compared to 150. So you have that going for you as well. So a lot of ways to get in and get your feet wet, and we're here to help if you need to. Like I said, this is like my second full year into it. I think I've played for 3 years now, but first year was like a couple satellites, and that's it. I was kind of like, let's just kind of watch from a distance. But yeah, you get going, get your feet wet, and you can have some fun in these formats. So yeah, see where it takes you. All right, Mr. Bloomfield. Now to we didn't win these ones, but we have some tough beats to discuss. I've been talking for a while, so I'll let you go first, then I'll come back here. But what was your tough beat, one would say?
So yeah, we did. And I feel like we both had like pretty good years. So we just listed through a bunch of, pretty competitive leagues and did well. Tout Wars. Tout Wars was brutal for both of us. We just got so close in different ways. So my Tout Wars team, I am in the 15-team mixed draft. And I think I scored more points in that league than I have ever scored in a league. I scored 127.5 points, which for me is like pretty amazing. And I think really in a 15-team league, that's a lot of points. And when I won Labor, I but had like 116, which a lot of times that's roughly where you want to be to win a 15-team league. 127.5 in tout, and I still got smoked by Seth Trackman, who I think had 136 points. So he just had a team where like it was overall worthy, and if there was an overall in tout, and I just happened to have a really, really good year, but happened to have a really good year at the same time that Seth did. So it's a little bit different than your Tout Wars second place story, but in that like there was no sweat. I mean, I knew probably 2 weeks ago that Seth was going to win it. A 10-point lead, and given the categories where he was at, it was pretty obvious that he was going to win. But it still kind of burns that to score that many points in a league and not win it, because definitely had a squad with that one. We also did a live stream of that draft as well, for anyone looking back on that one. So hurts a little bit, but still, it's one of those things where like I can control what I can control, and if I can get 127 points in Tout Wars next year, I'll take that all day. So we'll see.
Yep, for sure. More often than not, that it's going to take it down for you. Anthony Gialdi, Mr. Moose, asked that Ryan, you won an expert league, right? Yeah, he took down Labor. Ryan got Labor, so we got that for you here.
Despite Mr. Gialdi panning my Bellinger pick.
Yes. I remember. Yeah, he was a big proponent of it. That is true. All right. So you talked about your Tout Wars second place finish. You mentioned it wasn't as stressful as mine potentially. Yeah, mine sucked. It's the best way I can put it. It was a dogfight in this league. It's a 12-team mix. Difference is we do innings pitched instead of wins. It saves holds instead of saves. OBPs, that's all normal. OBPs at every tout league, but mainly the innings pitch thing. And I've learned to like that format in a way. But it was like a 4-person race. Andy Behrens, myself, Dylan White, and Matt Trussell for quite some time. And it was just rotating. We entered this last week with 3 of us tied at 92 points heading into Monday. I had a 93 to 91 lead heading into Sunday. I lost 92 to 91.5 to Andy Behrens. That was one that at 3 Pacific time. So there's like 3 games still going on. Like there's one.
Yeah, the hour by hour here.
There was basically I was up a half a point, then I was down a half a point, and then at 3 Pacific time with extra innings in Colorado, the Phillies game was like 10-8 or something, and then Rich Hill trying to get a win in Pittsburgh or wherever the heck he pitches now. It was tied at 92. And then I'm driving home about 25 minutes later when the games end. I reload things, and I lost by a half a point. But somehow, in those 25 minutes, it went kaboom goes the dynamite. So, yeah, that was a tough one because what I was really hoping for, and we kind of talked about it off air because I'm not one to kind of say a lot of that kind of stuff on air. I was hoping for the tout double dip because I won the daily tout, and then to win the season long, like a season long league. I'm pretty positive that's never been done before.
I mean, it's almost because you can't be in 2 tout leagues unless you do Unless I misunderstand, but you can't be in 2 tout leagues unless you like tout
Okay,
daily is like
have to
if
win
you're
that
in
one.
tout wars, you can join that as it's an optional thing. But yeah, I don't think anyone has ever won 2 tout wars the same year.
Yeah. So that was one of those that I was really, really hoping for, but
Yeah.
I digress.
Do
Didn't
you
happen.
so we talked a little bit before. You do not know what caused that last half point shift.
Nope. And I kind of
You
told you
gotta look,
beforehand.
man. Come
I told
on.
you before, like, I really don't want to see. I really don't.
You don't
And
want to see?
well, like, I don't even know where to start. I guess I could load the second page that shows me today's standings and kind of compare the two. Let's
My
do it.
guess
Okay.
is
I opened it up.
like Kyle Finnegan. That's my guess. Because
Well, this is,
I think that was the second to last game. There was an 11th inning game.
oh, I was down a point and a half heading into today. I thought I was winning. I was supposed to have been winning after Friday. So I made a comeback today. And Barons came back to me. But let's just see. Runs. So he lost a half a point in runs.
That's what I mean. You handle this better than I do.
I
Because I
gained
would
a
have been
half a
like,
point in homers. Yeah. OBP, ERA, whip, strikeouts, innings. Yeah, it was legit. I gained a half a point in homers. He lost a half a point in runs. And that was all it was. I can't tell you what it was at 3 Pacific time.
I'm going to investigate and
Yeah,
remind you what it is.
yeah.
I'm just
hey,
curious.
you're smarter than I am at that kind of stuff, so go for it.
I know there was like a late Trent Grisham steal, like late in that game.
I'm guessing it's something to do with the
stuff.
extra inning game in Colorado because it's an OBP league, so somehow something goofy happened and a run scored or some garbage, and that's what took place. That's my guess. Something goofy like that.
No, that's a tough way, especially like you said, to get the tout double dip would be sweet. And that's one of the things with my tout where second place, like people have won labor and tout in the same year before. I think Mike Gianella is the last one to do it. Maybe like 5 years ago, but I was that close to winning labor and tout the same year, which would have been pretty freaking sweet. But first and second ain't bad for both.
Not bad at all. It was a fun year. If you guys want to see all my goods, the bads, the uglies, again, I tweeted everything out. A lot of 4th and 6th places, a couple thirds. This third in the OC stings a ton because they only pay the first and second, and that happened literally today. So that was a nut punch as well. I went from that was a 3. We were 3-way tied there on Monday as well. Mason's in that league. And I was up in the second going into today, and yesterday. I lost it yesterday when Jordan Licks got absolutely destroyed by the Milwaukee Brewers, the Brewers hangover game. So that was fun. That was a lot of fun. But I digress. That is baseball.
Again, that no one cares, but just for accountability, I should probably tweet it out anyway. My other NFBC leagues that I haven't talked about: 9th place in the main event, 6th in TGFBI. In my 3 draft champions, 7th, 4th, and 4th. So $0 won this year in the NFBC. I mean, I guess I didn't have any teams in double digits, which doesn't mean anything, but no stinkers, but no winners.
On the bright side, your main event team was free this year. So
it was. That's true.
That's to be you weren't out 1750.
It was house money with that one, but still.
Yeah.
Have not been able to I've cashed once in the main, but have not been able to crack that one. It's a very tough contest for sure.
It's very, very tricky. Very, very tricky. Before we go into our awards section of the show, you had a fun dig up of a tweet from like February or November, or it was Jack Waxman at his finest. Let's just put it that way. I knew it was him out the gate because I saw the tweet where he said it was him, and then it made me laugh because that's Wax. But what is it? Let's relive this part here, because before you know it, we're gonna have steamer projections out, and we're gonna do the same thing all over again.
Yeah. So, So this is funny. So when steamer came out, steamer's Fangraphs, like, I don't know, base projection system. It's on Fangraphs. Comes out the first week in November, usually while we're at First Pitch Arizona. And so what I did, of course, is made a Bloom board when Steamer came out. And what I did was looked at the top ERA changers from last year to what Steamer's projecting. And the top guys projected to be the worst in 2023 compared to what they did for 2022 was Christian Javier, projected to go from a 2.54 ERA to 3.98. Dylan Cease, a 2.20 ERA last year, projected 3.71. Alek Manoah, projected 2.24 to 4.11. Julio Urias, 2.16 to 4.04 was the projection. Steamer basically nailed all of those. And the kicker with that is Yusei Kikuchi. Steamer, who was one of the I guess the third biggest improver from 2022 to their 2023 projection. Steamer projected Kikuchi to pitch to a 3.94 ERA after pitching to a 5.19 last year. And so I'll when Steamer comes out this year, I'll do the same thing. But just remember that when it comes out, because there were some takes about this Steamer thing that how could you say Kikuchi be projected to be better than Christian Javier, Alek Manoah, Dylan Cease? And so it's just, I don't know, you can like the projections are pretty good. And that's kind of the takeaway here is like on the aggregate, they kind of know what they're doing. One guy, there was just, I should probably try and find it. One guy, Blue Jays Twitter caught a hold of this.
Yes.
Someone was like,
they owe you some like bungee jumping and like cliff jumping and all kinds of stuff.
Someone said if Kikuchi posts a better ERA than Manoah, I will jump off the CN tower with no bungee cord. I will lick my boot and post it on Twitter if Kikuchi has a better ERA.
Only in Canada will lick my boot count as something like that.
LOL at these projections. Kikuchi better ERA than Manoah? LMAO. So it's just like it's I don't know. It's funny to look back in November and see some of this stuff that and it's a takeaway for this year too. A lot of the starting pitchers, we'll talk about 2024 like all the time. We've got plenty of time to do that, but I just thought it was humorous. A victory lap for Steamer. Victory lap for projections as a whole.
The OC overall champion chimes in. Drew Forte makes a good comment. If you avoided so many landmines if you utilized the info in that one tweet. You could have avoided so much.
I mean, projecting Dylan Cease to a 3.71 ERA. Obviously that was way off because he had like, I don't know what he had, a 4.80 ERA.
Sure. Close to
just having that information to know that Dylan Cease was projected to be 3.71 was huge, if you believe that projection, because then you avoided him, obviously, and avoided that disaster. Same thing with Manoah, Urias, all that. So,
as Anthony Gialdi says, I think the lesson is we think we know, but baseball is so long and unpredictable. Don't get cocky in February and March.
Yeah,
kudos. It's like taking early season victory laps. It's the same thing.
Well, and that's why we're doing this and like shouting out people and even shouting out ourselves, because it's the end of the year. Like this is such a long thing, and like this is the time to victory lap. I know a lot of people in the chat. You mentioned Drew, who won the overall. Justin Mason had a fantastic rebound season. Like this, I mean, enjoy this. This is the time to do it. Not in April.
Gialdi was ahead of me in so many of the NFBC 50s that every time I tweet that I'm going to go into one, he somehow signed up for shortly after. So I appreciate that. And he was in all our gladiators, so that was fun. Jeff Mitzif's and a great NFBC player. He's talking about how he did horrible in gladiators. He probably still won like thousands of dollars in other leagues. So it's like not even a big deal. But this is all kind of just tongue in cheek. Let's have fun and breathe for a second. Just breathe for a second. All right, let's talk about some awards now. Let's have some fun with that. It's kind of just who we think fantasy wise some awards can go, and there's a million ways to go about it. If you're in the chat, feel free to throw them our direction. We can have some fun with it. There's probably a million other awards we could have given out, but these are some to have some fun here. And Ryan, I'll let you have the floor. And we actually didn't. We took a couple of the same because you kind of have to, but there's always a couple guys you can nominate basically for the awards. So who is your hitter MVP for the 2023 fantasy baseball season?
Kind of a generic category, but it's got to be Cody Bellinger. And the big thing with this is I put out a poll, a tweet, whatever, every year that someone going outside, I think the first 12 rounds in 15 teamers, each of the last 6 seasons, there has always been a player outside of those first 12 rounds that post first round value. And so I put a poll out to see who that would be for 2023. Cody Bellinger, technically by the Razzball Player Rater, which is what I'm using to kind of look at this, did not finish with first round value. He finished 17th, close enough, with like a 190 ADP. So just the rebound of Cody Bellinger and what he did, I think just a change of scenery did him so well, hitting over 300 with the homers came back, the bags. I think it's pretty much a slam dunk given Bellinger's draft cost. Actually, 16th. Damn it. He finished 16th behind Soto and Austin Riley. But given where Belly was going, that was the MVP.
Yeah, that's really solid. I almost went Christian Yelich just because he was like after pick 100 and he's just so solid, but he's no Belly, that's for sure. So I kind of half cheated on this one, but still based on where Matt Olson was drafted, it's a game changer for me if you're able to pull it off. Like it's round, I'm using 12 team ADP, but in just the month of March, he was ADP of 40. So he's the back end of round 3. And again, obviously it's not late. People are going to complain about that. But what Matt Olson did was like first round talent, hit 283, 54 home runs, 127 runs, 139 RBIs. I recorded the final first pitch of the season before this, and I want to share a tweet that I saved for that show, and I'll save it for here. So OptaStats on Twitter tweeted this out. The Braves finished with the outright MLB leader in these categories. Runs, hits, stolen bases, and total bases went to Acuna. Home runs and RBIs went to Olson. And then wins and Ks went to Strider. No other team has had the outright MLB leader in more than 5 of those 8 categories in a season since RBIs became an official stat in 1920. So where I'm going with this, Matt Olson could technically be like the real answer is Ronald Acuna. We can't say that. So Matt Olson kind of fits the mold there. The other thing I wanted to bring into this conversation, because it involves hitters and I guess pitchers with Strider as well. But it was like a year or two ago, everyone was like, if you stacked up the Astros, you did well. Then it was like, if you stacked up the Jays, you did phenomenal with like Simeon and Bichette and all those guys. Obviously this year, if you stacked up the Braves, because I do have a team that had Albies, Acuna, and Riley on it.
That's what I was just thinking. Yeah, you could do Olson there somewhere too, but it was very stackable in those first few rounds.
That was my OC team I finished in third in after Saturday. Like, that was the team that was running with it. That was just crushing things. So there is it's a discussion people have in the offseason we can have again in 2024 is like, should you attack stacking teams? Like some people talk about it in best ball format, some talk about it in others, but I wanted to bring out that tweet along with the Matt Olson hitter MVP to kind of bring it all together. That there, and then if you want to really bring it together, you can look at the Razzball Player Rater, and I looked at like just season overall stat, like leaders. If you did Freeman and Betts, they were all like, it was basically Acuna, Olson, Freeman, and Betts were like top 4 in almost every major offensive category. All of them except stolen bases, average, homers, runs, RBIs. They were all there. So that just shows you if you kind of coordinate certain really good teams. I know it sounds common sense now. Pretty impressive stuff. So I just want to throw that out there. As it stood out to me when I saw that earlier, I want to make sure that I brought it to this show as well.
I like the Olson pick, and I think being too late, like, I don't think that's a big deal. If he was a 4th round pick, you can still be MVP. One of the things that Patrick Davitt at Baseball HQ Radio does this when he does his awards. He has like a formula for this. It's like the actual dollars that they earned plus the dollar profit from their draft slot. Matt Olson was the 2nd most productive hitter in fantasy this year, like without stealing bases. That's freaking crazy. Razzball, he's number 2 behind Acuna. $46 season being taken in like the 4th-ish round, probably a $20 pick. To turn a $20 pick into $46 is like, that's so much better than a $5 pick into 25. Like the amount of value that that Olson generated was just nuts. And one of the less like noisy seasons that like no one, I hate to say no one talks about it, but just he's underappreciated for what he did this year.
He's overshadowed because his teammate had one of the best statistical seasons you could ever find, and they had one of the best pitchers in baseball to top it off. So he just kind of gets overshadowed a bit there. Because you know what, to me, the most remarkable thing is not just the runs, the RBIs. He hit 283. Like that's to me, that's the thing. Like he did it a couple of years ago in Oakland, and then he kind of came back to earth. And we're like, okay, now this is who he is. He's like, if you can get 250, that's pretty cool. No, he went and hit 283 to top it off. You're just like, what the hell? And again, I keep saying this, but in a team where Acuna's hitting 40-plus bombs, you got Albie's doing his thing, Riley's doing his thing. Somehow Olson still managed to get 100-something RBIs. Like, that says a lot as well. And back of your mind, if people are saying Austin Riley underperformed statistically last year, well, you try driving runs after they're all off the bases. So keep that in mind. If somehow he falls for some weird reason, you got that going for you. And Justin, CJ Abrams will be mentioned later. I almost mentioned him as the MVP, but there's a category he fits into later on that CJ Abrams will be coming to for sure. And Art, Mr. Cheesecake agrees. 283 for Olson. Huge surprise. All right, let's talk pitcher MVP. And I took the easy way out. You took a more fun route. I appreciate your brain, Ryan. So what do you have on this one?
Yeah, I actually almost went Justin Steele, but Justin Steele quietly, as I'm well aware in labor, limped to the finish.
Are you happy he got scratched today?
Yes, just because I didn't need him. But
could he have hurt you? Could he have hurt you?
Not me personally. If he started, he could have hurt me in ratios.
That's what I'm saying. So are you glad that he got scratched?
I'm glad he got scratched. I'm glad I had Gossman. I'm glad Gossman got scratched. But that's just where I was in the categories. If in a vacuum, I would still want Justin Steele to throw. I still think he's fine. I think he got BABIP'd a lot these last couple starts. Like the Pittsburgh start was second to last start of the season. Gave up 6 singles in a row, like to the Pirates. I mean, I don't know. His last start of the year against the Braves, I think, shut them out for the first 4 or 5 innings and then gave up 3 runs. So, like, I think he was fine. But my actual pick is Zach Eflin. I think by the end of the year, Eflin just edged out a little. He was going a little bit later than Steele and posted a little bit more production. And I don't know, like, the lesson learned. I guess the lesson learned is, like, trust the Rays, but damn, they had a lot of injuries. I know. And saying this as someone in our 2024 too early draft, I took Zach Eflin at the end of the 7th round. I'm still a little bit nervous about that in 2024. But for 2023, Eflin, 186 strikeouts, 180 innings, 178 innings. I'm rounding up. But the health was there with Eflin. 102 whip. Like that's awesome. 16 wins, 3.50 ERA. That's to get that out of wherever the hell he was going in drafts pretty late. That's sigh-worthy for me.
Yep, that's great. I'm going to circle back to hitters real quick because Jeff Mitzif came in. He said Lane Thomas, another good option, another good one. I love the Eflin call, though, especially based on where he was drafted and just the consistency he put together. Like there was higher expectations than normal for him because of where he got traded to. But the ADP, I don't think reflected as high as I thought it would. And I agree. That's a really, really strong one there. Like I said, I took the easy way out, but one of us had to do it. Blake Snell, ADP of 106 in the month of March. He's going to be the NL Cy Young. At least he should. People are saying because Strider got win 20 on Sunday. But if Strider got it, I wouldn't be mad. But I think it's Snell's award. Let's put it that way.
No,
it seems like
I don't think Strider got 20. Oh no, he did get 20.
He picked up 20 today.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. So only guy. 2.25 ERA, 14 wins, the 234 Ks in 180 innings, 4.8. What makes it funny though, an 18% K to walk because he walks everybody under the sun.
I think had the highest walk rate among qualified starting pitchers.
He has a 13.3% walk rate. But just the overall stats, the ERAs, the stats that matter for real life baseball, and I'll say like the whip could have got you, but those strikeouts, man, we talk about strikeouts, 234 Ks and 180 innings pitched, like hallelujah.
Yeah.
And so I like I said, most of my winning teams, like my 2 DCs, Blake Snell. There's a handful of teams that did well for me. Blake Snell was a common factor on those teams, so I kind of had to say like, yeah, he was a part of the formula for my MVP.
One last 20, because I'll try and weave some 2024 takeaways in here. Do not panic in April, people. Blake Snell had an ERA just under 6 after the entire month of April through his first 5 starts, and will easily win the Cy Young Award. So just another data point there.
Just another one. Hitter bust. We shared this one. I couldn't justify going anywhere else. So I'll give you the
No,
floor because
I
this is your
mean,
boy. So I'll give you the floor on this one.
why is he my boy? You're
Okay,
you're bailing on the guy now that he sucks.
last year he was your boy. I had 0 shares. No, I had 2, man. I had a couple. Never mind.
No, I actually like Tim Anderson heading into the year. And yeah, we don't need to spend too much time on
Hey,
this
I've
one.
already had more high noons and home runs he hit this season.
Yes, I am on my second beer on the podcast. That's also more
Yep, that's my point. Yeah,
home
it's,
runs than Tim Anderson has hit all season. So the
brutal.
worst thing, I think you made this point on one of your other 5 podcasts, is you basically played Tim Anderson all year. Maybe like you benched him in August and finally like cut the cord, but this was one where like he did nothing for you, but was mostly healthy and was probably in your lineup because you think of him as a set and forget type of guy where you drafted him. And that, I mean, you almost, you don't want him to get hurt. He did get punched in the face, but it's worse than getting hurt, having that lack of production in your lineup all year.
It was a rough one. I'm curious to see that ADP for 2024 because I just don't know if I can trust it. Pitcher bust. These are all great options, all phenomenal options. I'll let you have the floor on this one because these are all, like I said, all beautiful options.
No, I mean, after having Trevor Rogers last year, I'm glad I avoided this year's. We should have called this the Trevor Rogers Award. Alek Manoah. I mean, it's just, it's obvious to me. 5.87 ERA, 174 WHIP, went in like the 5th or 6th round. So Dylan Cease with an honorable mention, just because he was going even earlier than Manoah, and Manoah only kind of killed you for half the season. Like, it's still really hard to recover from what Manoah's ratios did to you, but Cease was pretty bad all year. The strikeouts were there, but the ratios were just awful. So Cease gets an honorable mention.
You know what's fun about Dylan Cease is you have a good friend of yours that is watching a draft take place when you're in person and is texting you going, "Hey, your turn's coming up on the turn." And it's the 5th round and Dylan Cease is still sitting there. And I'm like, you know what? You got a point, Ryan. You got a point. It's this late. Like, what's the harm, right? Like, I waited on pitching. I went Joe Musgrove. I kind of punted pitching, and maybe that's why I finished 11th in BARF. But yeah, Dylan Cease. And he actually started out kind of okay, and then kaboom. So that was pretty rough. I can't blame you for that one. It was crossing my mind at the time. At that point, the ADP kind of go, yeah, maybe kind of works, but yeah.
I probably would have taken him like 75th or 80th. And maybe that's a takeaway. Like, if you don't believe a guy at 50,
why should you later? Yeah.
Why should you at 80?
The old joke, like we always say, like everyone's got a price. Why should everyone have a price? That should be a fun discussion at some point. Like, why should everyone have a price? I guess it could also go back to, you talked about like Davitt makes the what they earn situation. So I guess technically they do have a price if you waited till a later round. But the thing is, in my mind, so if you waited on him for like 3 rounds, in your mind, though, when you start your roster every week, you're playing him like he was supposed to be drafted 5 rounds sooner. Probably you're not. You're looking at the. I don't know. That's probably a deeper conversation for this podcast right now, but it just kind of crossed my mind at the moment. My pitcher bust. This is a popular one as well,
and a dual L on the podcast. We were both high on this guy.
Yes, we were, and I think everybody and their mom, at least I'd say 80% of the fantasy world was, if not more. ADP of around 50. Took first pitch Arizona by storm with his World Series performance. That's Christian Javier. He did throw 6 shutout innings with 4 strikeouts on Sunday, but he finished the year with a 4.50 ERA, 159 Ks, and 162 innings. And, that actually doesn't sound as bad as it could have been because his last few starts were actually okay, but he had a run where it was beyond dreadful. And the hardest thing was he wasn't striking guys out. So it's like, it'd be one thing if he was allowing 3 to 4 runs and have the 4.5 ERA. But if he was still getting the big time strikeouts he was getting, that would kind of mask things a little bit. It was just horrible all around. I was dropping him in places. I was recommending drop him in places. At least bench him. Don't start him. It was brutal for Christian Javier.
The weird thing with Javier is, like, I mean, he had a sub-3 ERA through May. That's the first 2 months of the season. It wasn't like a Manoah thing where he just came out of the gates and was terrible. Something happened, and this will be a deep dive in the offseason, but like, what happened to the guy to go from a sub-3 ERA for the first 2 months to then have a 5.79 in June, 6.86 in July, and a 6.17 in August? I don't know. Deeper dive is needed, but that's just fascinating to me.
Yeah, it's rough. It's very, very rough to see how all that turned out. But again, yeah, you said it could be somebody's young, so that'd be another thing to keep in mind. All right, mid-round hitters, 150 to 200 ADP. This is where we get some fun names. Who do you got here? And honestly, I would have taken this player, so I went elsewhere. Both of ours are very, very deserving. But who's yours?
First we'll give a shout out. Andy brings
call.
up a good point. The non-mentioned Lance Lynn, which is as pitcher bust. Just
and totally. We were all in on that, and we loved it. His first few starts with the Dodgers, and then it got blown up again.
Yep, another L taken on that.
Giolito could be another one. If anybody's keeping track at home, he was a fun disaster. But yeah, okay, sorry.
Mid-round All-Star stole 2 more bases today, but it's CJ Abrams. Like I said, I have a soft spot in my heart for CJ now with that 21st round labor pick. Abrams was going quite a bit earlier than that by the end of draft season. Labor drafts in like early February, but man, 18 homers, 47 steals. I mean, he only hit like 245. I don't have the final season numbers in front of me, but just a super growth year from, we forget this, an age 22 hitter who was a consensus top 5 prospect. And I think that's the takeaway, is like the market kind of gave up on CJ Abrams for not producing when he was a 21-year-old, well over his head in the majors, his first go around against MLB pitching, and obviously improved a ton. And admittedly took advantage of the stolen base rules, but hey, I mean, 47 bags only got thrown out, I think 4 times. And so, I don't know if I'm in next year or not at what will be a steep price, but we'll talk about that later. But in terms of mid rounds, like that's the guy that the 2024 CJ Abrams. That's who we should be spending our offseason hunting for.
Yeah, no, I was all in. That's one thing I was I talked about him on many early shows. I had tons of shares. The one good thing about the Gladiators, for people that say, "Oh, no one was talking about him," go look at some of the Gladiator drafts. If you were in on guys, if you took them in those drafts, because you had to. And I had CJ Abrams in all 3 of my drafts. Huge CJ Abrams fan.
Hey, and who else did you have?
And Trevor Story. Yeah, hey, and I still finished 2nd in one league and 6th in another. Those teams were all like dead out of contention.
Just had to throw that dart back in a little bit.
That
was what, like a February injury? Right after you
after my 3rd draft. It came out like a week after my final draft. I'm like, you got to be kidding me.
Classic.
Yeah. It was so good. For me, I am going to take, you better give you his ADP first. And it was between picks 150 and 200. Hitter Ha-Seong Kim, 80. Whoa, it's ADP at 278. I cheated, I guess. I was looking at hitters. He's the 168th hitter off the board, but I'm going to cheat and have fun with this. Give me Ha-Seong Kim, a guy that ended up being the best leadoff hitter for the Padres throughout the season. Hit 260 with 17 homers and 38 stolen bases. Was a must start. He was drafted in some leagues, waiver wired in others. Struck out less than 20%, walked a bit, so he got on and scored a ton of runs. 84 runs scored. This was a guy that was free in drafts. The positional flexibility was tremendous, which is what made him very, very viable second base, third base, shortstop. I love Ha-Seong Kim. He's going to go obviously much higher this next year, but he's one that could definitely be quite interesting. So Kim was my dude.
And I'd love to hear some analyses of like who was on this guy and why.
I know
I can't figure this stuff.
Toby was for a couple years now. He's been high on him for a couple years now.
I don't know. It's just like, for me, Kim was just like, oh, I need someone to fill some spots. And obviously I was wrong on that because using his position flexibility. But just to go from, I mean, he had 11 homers, 12 steals in a full season last year. To go from that to 17 homers and 38 bags, it's just like, I don't know. I don't know where that comes from. And, what do we pick up on to learn from that? Maybe we should corner Toby at first pitch, and
maybe we will. We might just have
squeeze some information out of him before our live pick.
Andy Splinter also mentioned his Nico Horner was a great one.
Yeah,
very good call.
I could see it with Nico. I get that. I just, with Kim, and I don't know. I'm sure I missed something. I just did not see it.
Yep. All right. Who's your pitcher? 150 to 250.
We have Kodai Senga. just for the strikeouts were crazy. The ERA was crazy. And I feel like it kind of went under the radar on a pretty much disaster year for the Mets. But to have a sub-3 ERA and over 200 strikeouts, I should probably do a quick lookup of how many pitchers actually did that. I don't think very many. So Kodai Senga for me, 12 wins, not bad. The whip was, and the problem with Senga for next year is that walk rate. The whip wasn't that great. But in terms of actual value delivered, I think Senga was right there. So
yeah, I like the Senga call a lot. For me, it's Pablo Lopez. Lopez, absolutely outstanding this year. I was always kind of concerned with the shoulder issue. He proved that all wrong. 3.66 ERA with a 3.29 xFIP, even better in that regard. He threw 194 innings. That was glory. Only 11 wins. Thank you, Twins. But man, 234 strikeouts and 194 innings. Honestly, outside of the ERA, he was better than Blake Snell. Yes, I said it. Everybody. 23.2% K to walk. Pablo Lopez was outstanding.
That's a really good point.
He was better than Blake Snell.
Didn't think about that.
Obviously, it was 15 more innings, but the strikeouts are pretty even. ERA was a little bit higher. Whip didn't kill you because he barely had a whip. His walk rate was 6% compared to Blake's 13%. So if you're talking about fantasy pitchers, he's better than Blake Snell potentially. Given that ERA is it's almost a full run different, which has quite the impact. But Pablo Lopez was amazing, and I will. This is where I take an L because I was just worried about going to Minnesota from Miami, and then I didn't trust the shoulder situation. I still didn't, and maybe I'll buy it next year. Now after a full season, it'll go back to a problem. I don't know, but he was absolutely elite this season.
Credited so you said thanks Twins for the lack of wins, but also thanks Twins for morphing this guy into a really good pitcher. He credits the Twins with working with him on his sweeper, which really kind of took Lopez to the next level. And I think that is a takeaway. I talked about this with Eflin with the Rays earlier, but I think the Twins keep an eye on. We saw what Bailey Ober did today in game 162. Keep an eye on what the Twins do with their rotation next year, because any additions they might make there, I am interested from a fantasy perspective.
And the good thing for once, because every season it feels like the Twins are always trying to figure out who's in the rotation. I feel like most of these guys are in the rotation next year, which is big for them, which is really big between Ober and Ryan and Pablo, at least the big three. I don't know about Sonny Gray. We might get to see a little I just totally blanked on him. Well, the old San Diego.
B?
No, the old San Diego pitcher that wore the cowboy hat just
the sheriff.
The sheriff, because he started making some Paddock started coming out of the bullpen the last few games, working back from his injury. So we might have some Paddock sightings in 2024.
Jeez. Yeah. No, draft and hold 40th round or something.
I'm not scared. But speaking of draft and holds.
I'm scared, but
speaking of draft and holds, who is your top hitter outside ADP 500?
Okay. Yeah, I made this category, but I like this category because this is something for just personally with DCs. What I need to do is it's so tempting to jump in a draft and hold and draft your first 10 rounds and analyze all that. The key is nailing these post 500 picks. There were a lot of them. I'm going to go for a hitter. I'm going to go Matt McClain, who was barely even drafted in draft and holds and just worked wonders. I mean, he was one of the best fab pickups of the year in fab leagues, debatably the best hitter in fab leagues, maybe except for Ellie De La Cruz. But I don't know. This guy hit 16 homers, 14 steals, hit 290, 400 plate appearances. And McClain, like I said, was just not even on draft and hold radars. I don't have the ADP in front of me, but it was, I think in the 900s, which I don't even know how that's possible, but it's Matt McClain for me for sure.
Yeah, when it comes to Matty McClain, he was ADP 748 in the month of March. He was drafted in 3 total leagues in the month of March.
Out of how many?
I don't know how many March drafts there were.
Probably a lot.
97, because Acuna went in 97 drafts. This makes it easy. So 3 out of 97 March draft champions, Matt McClain.
That says a lot. Again, if you're diving in and doing draft and hold research, that's instead of researching your first 10 rounds, research the next Matt McClain.
Yeah, my guy was picked 520. He was picked in all 97 drafts. That was what Nolan Jones. I'll give a hat tip to my buddy Mike Curlin. We were on this one from the
Yep.
get-go. The second he got traded out of the hellhole that was Cleveland that did not want him there, he went to Colorado and always opens our eyes because on paper, before the Rockies went full Rockies, he should have just slid in. That made too much sense, especially with the injuries that took place. I'll never forget when he finally got called up and then he didn't play at all for like 3 games and got sent back down, which made us very frustrated. But then when Nolan Jones came back up, he was the man. He played in 106 games this year, went 20-20 because he had a combo meal on Sunday to get into 2020. He hit 297 with 60 homers and 62 RBIs. Dude's a beast. And to top it off, he's only 25 years old. So, like we talk about the McLeans and all these other guys because, they're the big call-ups and all this flashing new toys. Nolan Jones is a youngster himself. And he just kind of didn't get the hubbub because, A, the Rockies are the Rockies, and B, like he kind of got talked up for a while in Cleveland and then just never really panned out. So that's why he got shipped out of town. He's just as young as a lot of these dudes. And there's no reason why he shouldn't be in this conversation. Obviously, more people know about him. That's why he got drafted in all 97 leagues. I'm not going to deny that factor. But like if you're talking about fab leagues, you were able to get Nolan Jones for like $1 or $2 for a while, like a couple weeks before. Like McLean, you had to pay right out the gate. So, yeah, Nolan Jones is my dude. I got a soft spot for him because he's helped me a lot this season. So I can't wait to have to see what I have to pay for him this next year because I agree. Matt Thompson from FWFB and Prospects Live, he sent out a tweet on Sunday. It says, hey, just so y'all know, Nolan Jones' breakout party is actually next year. And I don't think he's wrong. At age 26, being comfortable, everyday playing time, you might get a 35, maybe more type dude here. Like this could be Kyle Tucker-esque, if not better. I'm going to say that right now. So keep that in mind when you're drafting. All right. Who is your draft and hold all-star pitcher outside of 500?
I'm going to go duo, Tanner Bybee, Yuri Perez. And I'm grouping these guys together because they're the same type of pitcher. And I think for 2024, like my strategy lately in draft and hold has been to, take that playing time's king. Take guys that are going to play. Don't waste time on prospects. I think that changes. I don't know if it's the new CBA or whatever, but one of the big themes of this season, obviously, was all those rookie call-ups, and Tanner Bybee, Yuri Perez were two of those top ones. So, again, if you're hunting after the 40th round, don't know exactly what their ADPs were again, but they were free in DC.
I got them for you right now. In the month of March, Tanner Bybee 657, and Yuri Perez was I just went past him 571.
Yeah, so not even on radars. And so like again, who's the 2024 Yuri Perez? It's like how much do you study pitcher prospect rankings and build that into your draft and hold? I think we need to do that a lot more and emphasize that heading into 2024 because of just the sea of starting pitcher call-ups that happened this year.
And as the Mandalorian once said, this is the way. This is how it's going to start going for a while here with the way the system's starting to work. So
I think so.
Keep that in mind. I went the boring route, but I want to emphasize this for a reason. Late round DCs, I love boring pitchers because two things. You get innings, which you need in these formats. It's been discussed many times. And yes, I would love the Yuri Perez because he's a much better pitcher than Dane Dunning. But Dane Dunning was a pick 653. And if you look at what Dane Dunning has done for you, he's thrown 172 and 2/3 innings with a 3.70 ERA with 55 walks and 140 Ks. He's given you 12 wins on the season at pick 653. He pitched the whole season. So when guys are getting injured, he could plug Dane in. On 2-star weeks, he could plug Dane in. If you go through his game logs, because I've mentioned him a lot and I've used him in DFS for cheap, more often than not, he did not crush you. Thus, by the ERA, and in a 15-team draft and hold format like we're talking about, that is tremendous to have on your roster, like beyond tremendous to have on your roster. Boring is okay, and that's why I wanted to mention Dane Dunning because I agree Yuri Perez is probably the guy to have, maybe Tanner Bybee and others. But what I emphasize when I do these DC or NFBC 50s and DCs, I love boring pitchers late in drafts. Again, Dane Dunning, I had actually a lot of teams because just for that same reason, I've always been higher on him than a lot of people. And it's backfired before. I get it, but I know he's boring. Like strikeouts aren't there, but when he's on, he's just blah for like 6 innings and does not hurt you. And that's what I love about Dane Dunning. So I had to give a hat tip to him and to prove that in DCs, boring is a beautiful thing late in drafts.
Yep, for sure. A lot of weeks you're scrambling to field 9 pitchers. So.
Yeah, and the innings he gives are vital. Last one we're going to talk about here: best rookie call-ups. We kind of wanted the same guy. I sniped you. So who is yours?
I mean, I like the topic. You kind of threw this on last minute, but because again, theme of the season was just all the call ups, not just starters, but hitters as well. Talked about McLean early. We haven't mentioned Ellie De La Cruz, who was probably the best rookie call up in terms of like total value produced. But I went with Zach Geloff just because Geloff, if you look at the entire season of what he did, doesn't look that impressive. 14 homers, 14 steals, but he did that in basically a half season.
No.
And in Fab, he did not cost much at all. I got Geloff in my main, I think for like $40. It was not a triple digit Ellie De La Cruz or Bybee or whatever. It was a very, very much so under the radar type pickup. And I remember because it was the same week that Tyler Soderstrom got called up in Oakland, and it was like, who's the better one of those two? And obviously we know the answer to that, but anyone who kind of scooped Zach Geloff for pretty cheap got equivalent of a 30-30 season in the second half. And that is quite valuable. So Geloff's my guy.
Geloff was a priority for me that week, so I'm very, very pumped on that. And then we talk about these young pitchers. Tanner Bybee was the one I'm picking. He was the one we talked about on this show and others. Like out of all of them, he's the one I wanted the most because he was stretched out, and that's what we saw here. He made 25 starts for the Guardians through 142 innings with 141 Ks and 45 walks, a 2.98 ERA from a rookie pitcher. I don't care what division he pitches in. I don't care who name. I don't care. A 2.90 ERA for 25 starts from a rookie pitcher is amazing. So I give my vote to Tanner Bybee.
And he was definitely the one. So it was every week there was a new Fab starting pitcher. It was, looking back, it was Bybee was the best one. The second best, so Bybee was like 120th on Razzball Player Rater. Second best was Bobby Miller, 151. Bryce Miller was like 236. Taj Bradley was outside the top 400. Gavin Williams, who didn't pitch as long, 400. It was Bybee, and by quite a bit.
Yep. Big fan of how that turned out. But that was just a few awards. We could have done a bunch of different ones, obviously. I figure when we do some more analysis looking back at 2023, we'll realize some other names and talk about them throughout the deal. But it's kind of a fun looking back on the season, what we did, some awards, kind of some players that meant a lot to us is the way that turned out in the awards when it all kind of breaks down. But we did want to give a few shout outs. Ryan tweeted out like, hey, let us know if you did well, and we will shout you out on the show. So obviously some of you guys in the chat, thank you for that.
Yep.
A couple that I was able to save here, Matt Wolf, at Matt for Tennis on Twitter. I made it to the championship in all 3 leagues I played in this year and won 1. Thanks to you both. I look forward to seeing the Bloom boards next season. So kudos to Mr. Matt. Andy Splinter, who's in the chat here. He said a mixed bag. I won a 15-team satellite and an OCQ. That's good stuff. That's how I got into OCs for the first time. I took down second in my home head-to-head, but couldn't get it going on the OC. I get it. It's different. He said, I turned a profit, so I'll be back. Thanks for the insight and entertainment onto 2024. Are we drafting yet with the Chappelle gif? So that's
we are drafting. We may actually be drafting our next draft next weekend, which is totally sick. Like.
So, Dave Sawa, who he's a GTE member, but also just a great player, and he took down the NFBC 50 overall. He says, you guys do a great job of consistently putting out quality content. Much appreciated.
Congratulations, Dave. That's awesome. Yeah,
that was a big one for him. Gaman8, who's always brought amazing questions each and every show to us.
Yep.
Thanks, Ryan and Bubba. That's simple. Perfect. Another one here. Good old Mr. Forte was in the chat earlier. Drew Forte, the OC overall champion. So if you guys need a loan or anything, hit him and Brian Slack up. Those are your dudes right now.
That's right.
Drew said you helped me to my best season ever. Bloomboard discussion every week is great. Helped put me on Savali as a guy to target and reaffirmed Montgomery as a mid-round starting pitching target. That's awesome to hear. That's why we love the Bloomboards. That's for darn sure. I need to find one more because I know this is a big one.
Little Book of Calm gave us a shout out.
That's where I was going.
Unprovoked, which was really cool because he was.
Yeah, but
I don't know if you found it, but yeah, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, yeah, that was the part I was gonna mention is we didn't ask for anything like for the show at this point in time. He says first ever NPC experience was a huge success. TGFBI satellite. I mean, goddamn, look at those 132 standing points. First and second in my 212 team home leagues is cool too, I guess. Looking forward to competing against industry folks in 2024. Couldn't have done it without you as co-manager, D Silva, BD Intric, and Ryan BHQ for your patience and answers to a billion questions. He mentions many, many more, but he was very, very appreciative of and like we always tell him, we're like, hey dude, we appreciate your questions because like they're deep and they make us like
It helps
rethink
us.
everything. Yeah,
think about
that was my answer to him. I said, hey, thanks for helping us out. Like you made us better with your questions. So yeah, it was good. Did I miss anybody? I'm sorry. I tried to save them all.
I think that's pretty. I don't know. Maybe,
Yeah,
but I think that's pretty much it. So no, we really appreciate that stuff. And great interaction tonight in the chat. This was a ton of fun.
Yeah,
Fun way to wrap it all up, man.
Bring it all off season. Come in the chat because we're going to be recapping 2023.
We're not stopping.
Digging into 2024. We might start going twice a week sooner than later. Just throwing that out there. Maybe not in October, but that's coming as well.
Yep.
So, yeah, bring the interaction because it is the down season for many, but this is how you start winning 2024 championships is by grinding it out. And you guys bringing those questions and comments in the chat actually help kind of keep things going as well. So Bloomfield, final thoughts on another great season of fantasy baseball.
Oh man. Just again, relieved that it's over. Relieved that I will enjoy tomorrow and not look at a box score. October for me is a ton of fun because I actually get to just like watch baseball as a fan. I love the postseason. Like I don't do any postseason contests or anything. I just want to take a break from fantasy and just watch baseball and obviously write baseball forecaster blurbs. But to me, that's like a tradition like no other. Is just sitting down with forecaster, writing out player boxes and watching the postseason. So I am looking forward to that very much in October.
Yep, I'm with you. October for me is working on rankings, working on the black book, working on stuff like that to get ready for 2024. And then we go hard at it. Yeah, I've never like NFBC does a postseason tournament. Never done that. Underdogs got best balls for the postseason.
Yeah,
never done that. I for the first few days when there's 4 games going, every now and again I'll put a DFS lineup out there because I'm bored. But I usually even stay away from that. I'm just like it's time to kind of set back and enjoy actual baseball for a bit. Like you said, the games start Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, if necessary, for the opening round. Games start at like 3:08 Eastern all the way till 8:08 Eastern. It's a full day.
Yeah, I was looking at, I saw a graphic MLB put out. I think there's 12 games if they all go. 12 games Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, like during the day. Not going to be a productive real life job week.
Yeah, so it's fun. It's a good time of the year. But like we've said many times, thanks for joining us along this ride for another fun season. This is our second season of Bubba and the Bloom, and we truly enjoy doing it. Like Ryan said early on, we actually like each other and we like talking to each other. And then doing the show is even better because it helps us become better fantasy players. So we do have ideas to potentially do more cool stuff for you guys. So and it starts at First Pitch Arizona, by the way. There will be giveaways at the live show, whenever that is. That's still to be determined, but there will be a live show, I promise. Even if it's at the bar, there will be a live show for Bubba and the Bloom. But there'll be giveaways there, and then we'll have more fun stuff throughout the season. So bring it on. Keep it coming. Help grow this crazy show we call Bubba and the Bloom. But until next time, check out Ryan on Twitter at RyanBHQ, the podcast at Bubba Bloom Pod. I'm on Twitter at BD Intric. Until next time, this was Bubba and the Bloom, episode 76, your 2023 fantasy baseball season recap. Catch y'all later.